The secret to success in your marketing is consistency. So what's the secret to consistency? How do you get consistent if you're anything like me? Consistency is really hard to do. I'm just actually not even a fan of it. And yet it's necessary if we want to be successful in our marketing. Okay, so how do we get consistent in our marketing? I'm going to talk about that with you right now. But first, I want to talk about why this matters. How is consistency the secret to the success of our marketing? What does that even mean? So when we're consistent in our marketing, we show up regularly for the same people in our audience over and over and over. And what that means is we're not just popping in every now and then to talk about something. We're showing up regularly, having an ongoing long-term conversation with them that allows us to go deeper into topics, to serve them, to bring value, and when it comes to selling, to mix that selling into the long-form version of our content over time, rather than just showing up and selling. The way I like to think about this is, let's say you have somebody that you go for coffee with, and you meet every now and then on a random basis or once a quarter or something like that, and you have a conversation, and there's all this catching up, and it's all out of context, and you spend a lot of the time just catching up and getting into context. Or you meet with somebody every week at the same time. Every Monday at noon, you have lunch together. That means that every Monday at noon, you're just continuing the ongoing conversation, catching up a little bit, but really keeping basis on what's going on and looking forward in your world because you're all caught up. And so you can think a little bit bigger. That's what we're talking about, is having an ongoing conversation, a long-term journey with your audience, helping them get to know you better. And in the same token, at the same time, helping you get to know them better. So you get to speak to them more specifically and more in context because you've taken the time to learn. And when you've done this, when they've gotten to know you and you've gotten to know them, you build a mutual trust that allows you to very naturally sell what you offer in your business. So it is, in the end, a long-term sales strategy to get consistent in your marketing. Okay. So you want to get consistent in your marketing. How do you do that? Well, again, as a person who's not a fan of consistency in my life, and yet recognizing the need for it, I figured this out. And I've got two specific examples that I want to share with you to talk about how this secret has shown up and how it works. And there are a few other things buried in it. These two secrets, or two halves of a secret really, are the tent poles, and then there are other things that fall in under them. So I'm going to share with you what it is. It's coming. And then I'm going to tell you a whole lot more about how it operates to give you some things to think about, because my goal for you is to apply this to your marketing. So the secret to being consistent in your marketing is twofold. You need to decide what it is you're going to do, and then you need to commit to it. And that commitment is the hard part. So what's the difference between deciding and committing? Deciding is stepping over a threshold. It's choosing. It's the choice you made. This is the thing I'm going to do. But you've probably noticed in your life that deciding you're going to do something and then doing it are two different things. And that difference is the commitment. So commitment is honoring that decision that you've made, honoring yourself. It's about integrity, but it's also about putting things in place to help you stand up to the commitment that you decided. So deciding, committing, and then supporting that commitment. That's the secret right there. So the examples that I want to share with you will kind of lay out how these all work together. And I want to start with my example is Facebook Live. I've been doing Facebook Live on Mondays, 10:30 a.m. for over 3 years. As a person who doesn't commit, that is impressive. I just want to let you know. And I've been doing it so consistently. And this is how you know that it's working, is when I take breaks. I take a holiday break, or at one point I had surgery, and so I was off for like a month. I had people reach out and say, hey, I missed you on Monday. Did you do it? Can I just not find it? I had one person reach out and be like, hey, Facebook has stopped giving me notifications that you're live. What's up with that? And I was like, well, in order for it to give you a notification, I would have to be live. So they notice that you're missing because you're so consistent. So the thing with Facebook Live, and the reason I got involved, and this matters, this is all part and parcel of it, so backing up, you need to make a decision, you need to commit, and then you need to support that commitment. And that commitment is very tied to why you're doing it. If you don't have a solid reason why you're bothering to do something, you are not going to stay committed to it. You need to have a purpose, a reason to do it. And in the case of Facebook Live, I know for myself, I'm a verbal processor. The first way that ideas come out of me is through my mouth. And then I'm like, oh, that's what I was thinking. And now I can do things like write or just other content, create social media, whatever. But I need to know first what it is I'm thinking. And so verbalizing it and doing Facebook Live is helpful. Well, that's my reason for me. But I also wanted to get to know my audience, and I wanted to have an engaged conversation. I literally wanted them to talk back with me. And doing Facebook Lives where they can chat and type allows that, enables that. So for me, it was just a very good fit. And I wanted to connect with my audience. So from a marketing perspective, I had a lot of really solid whys or reasons for why I wanted to do Facebook Live. So because more than 3 years ago, it was a new idea for me and I wasn't really familiar with it, I got into a program that taught you how to do Facebook Live, and I surrounded myself with a community of people doing similar things on Facebook Live and doing video. And that further supported my ability to maintain my commitment because I wasn't floundering. I was always learning. I had a place to go for questions. So if the thing you're looking to do that you want to commit to feels out of reach, maybe technically out of reach, getting into a program, surrounding yourself with people who do similar things can help you stand up to that commitment. So I wanted to talk about that. Oh, and I wanted to talk about that. And the other thing, just one more reason why I do this, and I'm speaking about this from an introvert's perspective. I have a habit of what I think of as hiding under a rock. It's really easy for me to be like, I can't do this right now. And I kind of disappear from the world a little bit and I come back. But I wanted to get in front of that a little bit because when I do that, it really makes my marketing inconsistent and I have to pick it up again. And I was always picking it up again. And I really wanted to just get consistent in there. So one of the reasons I did Facebook Live on Mondays at 10:30 a.m. specifically is because I know that my best day and my best time is in the morning on Mondays. And if I do nothing else that week, at least I would do that. And it turned out to be true that I could maintain that even if, all right, the rest of the week I'm hiding under my rock. At least on Monday mornings, I could do that. And it became interesting. And I talk about tent poles and other things that fall under it when we put things in place. My 10:30 a.m. Facebook Lives on Mondays became Monday morning marketing mayhem. And I still do that where every Monday morning is just my marketing for my business. And the Facebook Live is a keystone in that process. So it's interesting what happens when you put one thing in place. And in this case, my Facebook Lives on Monday, more than 3 years ago, which is crazy. For me, it's crazy. So that's one example. But I want to share with you another example that about blogging. So blogging over the years, I would try since like 2016. I would blog for a couple weeks and then I'd stop and pick it up eventually. It just was really hard to stick with it. I think because I didn't understand why I wanted to do this. I knew I needed to. It was a way of marketing, that kind of thing, but it didn't feel, I wasn't committed, right? I decided, but I wasn't committed. And then a little over 6 months ago, I was thinking, I've got my Facebook Live. I'm thinking, hey, I want to be on YouTube. Or I might want to do a podcast, but I couldn't decide. So I sent my email list a question. And this question was, which of these would you be interested in watching or listening to if I just decide to do them? A, YouTube, B, podcast, C, something else. And I was just curious. I was like, is there something I haven't thought of? I got more than 25 responses, which for me with my list at that time was a lot. And more than 30% of them said something along the lines of, I want you to blog. It sounded like, sure, if you go to YouTube, but also include a transcript, or no matter what you do, can you also blog? And it was a great aha and insight. And here's what I didn't realize. So I work with introverts, specifically introverted business owners who tend to have a really good, strong writing capability. And introverts tend to write. That's how they process ideas. Not 100%, but a lot of them do. And it didn't connect with me. If they're writers, then they're probably also readers. And so I learned, I was talking before about you learn about your audience when you talk to them. And that's something I learned. I was like, holy crap, I didn't know that. That makes so much sense. And in that instance, I'm also, because I'd been trying to blog for years, I had a place to blog. I just needed to do it. And so I started blogging that week, and that was over 6 months ago. And what do we mean by consistency? Well, I have not blogged every single week since then, but I've blogged every single month, and I blog consistently and regularly, and I'm continuing to work on it. And I want to get into a little bit of that in a second here. But what I did was I decided, and then understanding that this is what my audience not just needs, but wants, I committed. And so I just needed to support that commitment by putting some key things in place. And those key things that come in to help create that consistency, when it came to the blogging, some of the things that I put in place were, so let me back up and talk about a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. I'll put a link in the description here so that you check it out if you don't know this book. But James Clear talks about different things that help us create habits over the long term. Because here's the thing, you don't create a habit in 28 days. You don't create a habit in a week. You create a habit over the long term, and how long it takes depends on the habit you're trying to create. How complex is it? How far away from it you are? How much do you need to learn? How committed are you? Right? So all these things come into what you need to do to develop a habit. But the things that helped me with the blog specifically, it helped that I already knew how to blog. I've been on and off for years about it. I've been a writer all of my life. So it wasn't a tech challenge like for the Facebook Live. It was more, how do I get myself to do this? And so one of the things that James Clear talks about is habit stacking. And habit stacking is taking a habit that's already in place and adding something onto it. So one kicks off the other. And my habit that I already have in place is my Facebook Lives on Mondays at 10:30. So bouncing off that, I can do a blog. So I was able to, but because it's a habit, it kind of comes and goes until you kind of lock it in. And it's more locked in these days. It's a journey. It's all a journey. But that habit stacking is helping me blog regularly, which I can then send through my email list and talk to my people. And like, there's going to be a link later on when I do the blog under here. I'll put a link to the blog post that goes on this content because my content is all related. I think you see where I'm going here, right? So you've got decide to do it, commit to do it by understanding what it's doing for you and really looking at the long term, and then putting some things in place to support that commitment. Because what we're talking about when we're talking about commitment is integrity. We're talking about your integrity to your audience, your integrity to your marketing, your integrity to your business, your integrity to yourself and your word. When you decide something, how are you going to do the thing you said that you would do? So hopefully this is answering your question about how you can get consistent in your marketing. If you have questions, please put them in the comments. I would love to hear them. I am here to help you answer your questions and get consistent in your marketing. I'd love to have this conversation with you. That's it for now. I'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you so much for being here.